Hey, everybody, I'm Rob Nelson, and this is Rob Nelson Live. So, the last few weeks, the last couple months, this country's been going through a devastating period of time, from coronavirus to massive protests to cultural, social upheaval like we've never seen in decades, if ever, when you put it all together. And, everybody's been affected by this in different ways. Perhaps one of the biggest and most not talked about groups of people that are affected by this is young people, and particularly students. If you're a parent, you've got a kid who was in school, you went through the challenges, right, of trying to figure out how to deal with having your kid home all day while you're home all day, while your spouse is home all day. And it was tough. It was tough if you were a middle class, upper middle class, or even probably a rich family. Less tough if you were a rich family, let's be honest. But I mean, it was a challenge. And it was a challenge for the kids. It was a challenge for young people to have to deal with it. So take that to another level. What about all the kids, the young people, the students who weren't in those more comfortable environments? What if you were in an inner city, any inner city across America, any big public school system across America? What if you come from lower income families? What if you are dreamers? What if you are the DACA, the dreamers? What if you're the young people who came here technically illegally and are protected by the Dreamers Act? And what if your family is a lot of essential workers? Because if you don't know this, you should. Latinos make up 18% of the US population, but 37% of the COVID-19 cases. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that that's a whole lot of people who've been going to work the whole time while you've had the luxury to stay home except to go to the grocery store. What if you add all those factors in? And for the teachers and the school system having to figure that out, it takes schooling to a whole new level. So whether you're from that community or whether you're from a middle class community or a more upper class community, or even if you don't have kids, this episode, this show is all about it. And I've got two awesome guests. One is the principal of a school in downtown Los Angeles School of Global Studies, and the valedictorian, one of the 4 valedictorians from that school. I'm Rob Nelson Live. Let's get to it.
Meet Rob Nelson, talk show host.
Because you got the 70s thing going there.
My name's Rob Nelson. I used to have a talk show on Fox, a show on Fox News, but news in America is so produced. I don't care if you think it's left, right, center, fake news. You passed tougher legislation to deal with the paparazzi after what happened with you and your family.
I think it's very important that we focus and rebuild.
All right, welcome to the show, everybody. So today we are talking about young people. We're talking about the cultural and political change that's happening. We're talking about education, and we're also talking about different populations. In particular, the school that I'm going to talk to the principal and the valedictorian about is a largely Latino-based population in downtown Los Angeles. It's a remarkable school. I'm about to bring on the principal of that school, and I want to just say full disclosure. It's a school I was involved with for a number of years. And it's a really special school. To me, it's a school that proved that no matter what the background of young people, no matter where they're coming from, no matter what challenges or disadvantages, no matter the community they're from or the community they're going to school in, this school proved that when you come together and you do it the right way, you can make everybody successful. A myth that a lot of people say you can't. You got to write off a certain portion of the population. You don't. And this school and this principal and these students have repeatedly proved that. So everybody, I'm really excited to have Dr. Christian Quintero on, the principal of Los Angeles School of Global Studies. Christian, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Rob. I really appreciate coming in.
Listen, it's really good to have you. Excuse me. And I really believe what I said about the LA School of Global Studies. You know, before we dive into the bigger stuff, I feel like you have helped create a school that beats the odds. And I hate to say it, but whether people want to admit it or not, you know, I talk a lot in the last few weeks about, you know, sort of this kind of, I call it the white liberal guilt or whatever, and people sort of putting the thing on Instagram, but doing something, you know, when it came to the Black Lives Matter stuff, but not really changing their behavior. I sort of joke, every tall black guy I know says, white people always cross the street when they see me. Like, you know, well-intentioned, but wrong. And I think when it comes to this, a lot of people don't want to say it, but in their minds, they write off a huge portion of the population of young people in schools and go, those kids just aren't going to make it. Too bad.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you on that one. And you know, one of the biggest things that we could talk about is the funding that, you know, we get at our schools. So, you know, New York per pupil spending is about $30,000. California per pupil spending is about $17,000. So it's significantly lower. So when you have a disparity of per pupil spending, you know, you're not going to get all the right resources. And for me, that's really an example of how we're writing off our students. When California can say, we're not going to spend so much on our students because, you know, we just don't want to. And that was
Christian. What do more comparatively? What does it say a more affluent? I'm not saying the richest school systems in the country, but like if you're in a more affluent, say maybe a solid upper or middle upper class school setting in California, say what is an average per student spending? Just I have no clue.
You know what? That's a great question. Well, you have to also look at where are the funding sources coming from. So the school that my kids go to, we get a weekly kind of email about asking for donations. And we give those donations because we want to give that money for our children. My school is 100% Title I. That means my parents are at or below the poverty line, according to the federal government. So what booster club, what, you know, parent resources do we have to bring in those extra funding? So it's not just the funding that you get from the state, but it's all those additional fundings that you get from community partnerships, from booster clubs, from PTA, things of that nature. So I don't have a number in me right now, but I know that in some parts of California, Southern Cal, parents are expected to donate anywhere between $2,000 to $5,000 per kid.
So, Christian, let's jump in, and I want to jump into some stuff about the school. We could spend a whole hour just talking about the remarkable nature of this school, and I just want to take like 60 seconds so people understand. You guys created a school in the middle of a really challenging part of Los Angeles with a big, giant middle school feeder and a not very good, massive high school, and you created public charter schools, so they're part of the public school system that were a little smaller, and proved, right, that through the process and the project-based learning approach you guys took, that you could take a population that was not doing great in school overall and get, what, 95% graduation rates, right? Legit graduation rates.
Our graduations have fluctuated over the years, but it's been as high as 95, as low as 75, and so given the different demographics, given the different kind of climate and what's going on, it'll be between that. But we definitely brought the graduation numbers up.
But I mean, those were numbers so people understand. Those kids again, not everybody knows, like we're talking downtown Los Angeles, the kids before that were feeding, into the traditional big high school. The graduation
45%,
rates were abysmal.
45% were graduating for
Right.
sure.
And
So we
these are
brought
the
those numbers
same
up.
kids. I want people to know. It's not like you took the best kids and cherry picked them. This
Right,
is whoever
right.
showed up.
Right. We're not a charter school, so I want to kind of clarify that. We are a public school, a small public school in LA. So our school is part of a small school movement that happened 14 years ago, where we really decided that, personalization is the key to helping our students grow. If we get to know the parents, if we get to know the students, if we build those strong bonds and those strong relationships, we can ask our kids to do more, and they will do more. And so, the person that we have on today, Leslie Ramon Calderon, she's an example of that kind of student.
And I want to just say, I'm thank you for clarifying for everybody out there. I wasn't suggesting it's a charter school. It's a public school. I misspoke in saying a public charter or whatever, but I just want to be clear. It's a public high school, and that's what's so remarkable about it. So let's talk about, and I want to get to your video, but let's jump into some of the actual challenges right now. And again, I think parents everywhere and schools everywhere are facing enormous challenges with, you've got your kids at home. I see it with my sister and my nephew, like, it's a lot to, kids aren't used to having to stay home all the time. They're not used to having no social contact, and they're certainly not used to being home with their parents all day long and the parents home, right? But it's even harder, right, when you come to a school, which again, you're in an urban area, which already makes it more challenging. And you're dealing with a lot of people who are, coming, they're first generation English speakers and a lot of essential workers, right, in those families. Is that a fair way to describe it? I mean, I think there are extra challenges in general when you get into an urban environment, any urban school environment. And when you get lower income, and when you bring in the fact that I would imagine a lot of these kids' parents had to work.
Not just the kids' parents, the kids were also working. And that's actually the part of the conversation that doesn't get discussed. So we had so many seniors. One of our seniors who did his defense talked about working at a meat factory, meat processing factory, from 5 to 12 every day, just to help his family out. And
during the COVID,
during the COVID, yes. And so, when our students weren't interacting with school at the time, it's not because they were lazy or whatever other stereotype you want to use. It's because they were exhausted from working, exhausted from being home, exhausted from not having a chance to just escape to school sometimes to be with their friends. And so it was definitely very challenging for our student population, for sure.
And how did you guys approach that as a community, as a school community? And again, I think that's really interesting because most families, again, especially if you're suburban, you didn't have to deal with the fact that your kid had to go to work, and certainly didn't have to go to a meat processing factory, right? I mean, but maybe some people had kids who worked at a McDonald's or whatever, but for the most part, you were just dealing with your kid being home. You weren't dealing with your kid having to go to work to help pay rent, or living in a really crowded home that maybe has a lot of people in it. And how do you, everyone on top of each other's heads, like, have to deal with that and still do school and still stay focused?
So the thing that we tried the hardest to do was to keep the relationships, and so keep the conversations going. So I was calling parents, all of our support staff were calling parents to make sure the students had what they needed, which was, did they have a technology at home? Did they have Wi-Fi at home to be able to access the school? Did they have food at home? Did they need any extra resources? So we had some meal plans coming into our school so families could come and pick up meals if they needed. But LAUSD did an exceptional job with giving meals to families and community members that needed it. I don't know what the number was. I think the last number I saw was 35 million meals within the COVID period. So, we tried all of the different ways to build our relationships and really help our families with what they needed. Every week, every Monday, we would have a list of students who weren't accessing the technology. And so that list of students, we made phone calls. Do you need technology? Do you need Wi-Fi? Do you need food? Do you need support? What other things can we do to help you? Because, at the end of the day, we're all people, and we need the basics to be able to function and learn.
What is it, and I want to get the video up in a second, but what is it you think people don't, you made the point, the funding right there. You're looking at $17,000 a student versus over twice that, or almost just over twice that in New York. And obviously it's going to be higher in a more affluent community, or you're going to have a lot more parents' ability to put the money in to back it up. What do you think it is that people most don't understand right now? The biggest mistake we're making when it comes to a huge, to young people in school, and particularly in more, challenging. I don't even know what word to use. I don't want to say more deserving communities. I hate always saying inner city, but in more challenging communities where you're more disadvantaged. Perhaps, you're facing more social challenges. And in general, that's a huge part of our school population in America. What are we missing?
I think we forget about the stressors that many of our students face. And so one story I'll tell you is of this senior who was doing her defense. And we do defenses, a sophomore defense and a senior's defense. It's a performance task that are a performance-based assessment that our students do to demonstrate and show how they've learned over the 4 years. And this one student chose as her artifact, she wants to be a teacher. And what she chose as her artifact is how she was taking care of her 2 nephews and 1 niece during the COVID crisis. So her sister was working and mother was working. So she was a kind of stay-at-home mom for the whole time she was there. She had to find time to do her work by waiting for them to take naps or in the evenings. And she talked about what she learned on how to help her nephews and niece grow and learn and be in academics was what prompted her to want to become an educator for elementary school when she goes to college. So it's those type of stories that we don't think about. I don't know how many of our population know that our students have extra responsibilities at home, like taking care of family members. Our 10th grade teachers did some journal entries for the students, and they would write journals every day about the COVID crisis. And one student talked about how her father stopped working and has been home, and she's never had a relationship with her father. And so she felt weird because he was home all the time, and he was sad because he wasn't working. Those type of stressors don't get enough discussion or dialogue around what our students face and what they see.
Mm-hmm. And in a few minutes, we're going to actually be joined by one of your valedictorians. Before we do, and we're going to get a student's perspective. And again, one student, one teacher, one school. I'm not pretending it's a panacea, approach that, whatever you say is true, and I always hate that, but I do think there's validity in that you're actually experiencing as a community something that a lot of other communities are experiencing, and it's the same for them, and other communities aren't experiencing but could learn from. Let's go ahead and, Christian, set this video up. We have about a 1.5-minute video you guys did for your virtual commencement.
Right. So we're a linked learning school, and our pathway is design media for social change. So our students learn design skills, they learn media skills to build awareness around social change. So in their senior year, they do this one civic action project. 4 years ago, I think our seniors went and spoke at LA City Council to talk about, homelessness and how to support the homeless population. A few years ago, with gun violence, we had Congressman Jimmy Gomez come for a press conference, and our students were talking about gun violence and what's the realities they see. And so for this virtual graduation, we had 2 of our seniors work on the national anthem. And we wanted to have the national anthem as part of like the tradition of graduation, but we also wanted the audience to see the realities that many of our students faced and also give kind of a bit of the history of what they've experienced these last 4 months. And so the students worked with our design teacher, Jacqueline Latorre, and did a spectacular job putting a video on top of one of our community partners singing the national anthem. So
before we play it, Christian, I just want to ask, do you feel that around the national anthem, do you feel, and by the way, we have a couple comments coming up. So I just want to say, somebody said that the journaling is really great for mental health. And I just want to note, I think that's true. And I think one of the things your school did early on that I saw when I was, part of what you guys were doing was you had students journaling from 9th grade on, which I think was awesome, or writing stories, sharing stories, writing your account. And I think that's powerful. And somebody else asked where you're located. So Christian's located in, well, I don't know where you are literally this second, but the school is located in downtown Los Angeles. What, about 2 blocks from City Hall?
A little more than that. We're right in between, Lucas and Bixel on 3rd Street.
So, but for people not from LA, you would be downtown LA.
Yeah, we're downtown LA. We're, you're in
the heart of downtown LA.
Correct.
Right. So just before we play the video, was there a sense among students, any kind of a divide? We've seen the national anthem issue come up, and it came up around the Black Lives Matter stuff, obviously. And your school's more Latino than Black, but Was it an issue, a sense of, was there any divide or discussion about the anthem and feelings about it, and given all the politicization that we've had around this stuff, or not? And I'm just curious how that played out.
This is the first time we were doing the virtual graduation. There was conversation. Should we have an anthem? I think in general our graduations have a pledge, have an anthem, and things of that. And we decided to keep the anthem, but we wanted to put a little spin on it. And the spin was the video that's attached with it, which is really kind of promoting the idea of this is the history that we've lived the last 4 months, and this is what we want to say as part of our historical kind of legacy for the class of 2020.
And I think all I'm asking is, was there within the school, did the politics of all this stuff, obviously the politics comes up, right? Did the politics come up around this at all? I mean, where people were like, we love America, but especially you have a lot of dreamers, and we'll talk about that, but you've got a lot of people who are kids who are under the DACA Act, which is the deferred, for those who don't know, it's a deferred program for children who came here with their parents and they weren't legal. So it prevents them from being deported. They can get work permits. They can, they can go through criminal background checks. They can become a big part of society. Was there any tension around that and the national anthem, or were people like, no, we love America, let's get to it,
That's hard for me to say. We're all in our own homes. Right. There was no open dialogue or open big conversation around that. And so I'm sure if we were going to school daily, there would have been a different conversation about America, about the national anthem. But I will say that I believe, and the school believes, that civic action is the way that we get our kids' voices heard. And so civic action, regardless of, whatever position, if you have an argument, if you have a position, if you have a stance, say it, use it, and use supporting arguments and supporting evidence to help support you with whatever you're saying. But
I love that, Christian, civic action. And I want to say, because, I even said for a long time, when Colin Kaepernick first started taking a knee, the national anthem stuff. And I was like, look, I'm the first to say, I don't know if that's the right way to protest because of the soldiers in the military. But that said, I've always said, and publicly, I admired Colin Kaepernick for having the guts to take a civic action and say, even if it costs me my job, I'm doing it because I believe in it. And I think, whether it's protest or whether it's, getting involved in a different way, getting into the process, politically taking civic action, I really think we undervalue the power of an individual to make change. And Christian, I feel like in your school, you have seen individuals. You've seen the power of what one person, 2 people, 3 people can do in their own lives to make change and the effect that can have on a community.
For sure, definitely. And it puts a voice for a lot of the students who feel that they are voiceless in our society, or voiceless when it comes to politics, or voiceless when it comes to legislation, right? So by them taking a stand and them saying something through our civic action project or through the other work that we do at our school for design media for social change, our students understand that the second they leave our school, they are ambassadors. They are global ambassadors to change the world for the better.
I love it. Let's check out this video, and then we'll get Leslie on in a couple minutes.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, oh, the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner
Wow. You know, I know it's not like it's a tearjerker video, but
It is. It is. The first time I watched it, I cried. I cried hard.
it choked me up. And I think why it chokes me up so much is I feel the passion and the commitment to what this country really was and is supposed to be all about. You know, you can get upset about protests and the national anthem or that, but when you take the spirit of it, you know, what it meant and what it can mean. And I'm watching a generation of people, Christian, in your school, you know, young people, a lot of them who are here for the first time, and many who are here technically, call that word illegal, but are dreamers, so they're not illegal. But I mean, you know, who weren't from here historically generations back, taking ownership of the future of America. And it's inspiring.
For sure, that it is. This final video went through a lot of iterations, but when it finally came to me for me to put into our virtual graduation, I was in tears. And it tells their story, and it tells our students' story, and they definitely left a legacy there. And one of the most important stories it told is that we are all united. You know, the protesters, the uprising, everyone here, we're all trying to fight for the same thing, which is we want equality. We want to make sure the justice system is fair. We want to make sure that we have a voice and that we're not just killed without cause.
Yeah. And, you know, and we'll bring Leslie, you're coming on in a second. We'll have plenty of time for you. But I just want to say, because, you know, I know I have listeners and viewers who are on the more conservative side of the spectrum, and they're not necessarily anti-protest, but what I want to say is what you just said, Christian, I feel like, you know, you don't have to necessarily be a protester or even fully understand what the protests are about to support the idea that what you just said, we all, every one of us needs to want equality and justice for all. And that's the goal. Nobody wins if some people don't get it. Nobody wins if some people have it. And you don't benefit if you go, I don't think you should be. It's like, no, we should all be coming together to find a way to ensure that. And I think particularly when it comes to a lot of the Latino kids and kids in your school, the Dreamers, and Leslie, we're going to bring you up now, but you know, the DACA thing, it really gets to me, Christian, because, and Leslie, please join us. We've got one of the valedictorians, Leslie Calderon. Did I say it right? Calderon?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Leslie Calderon's one of the valedictorians from the school. And Leslie, I want to get you into this conversation, but really realizing, like, you know, I think it's very easy to get stuck in the politics of stuff and not to realize that, you know, you've got 700,000 kids who are here under the Dreamer program. And those are people who are contributing and going to be contributing every day to society. Right now, I'm sure that was a lot of people in essential services, people in hospitals, people, you know, think about it, people making ventilator masks, people who are therapists, nurses. And it's like grocery store, you know, people work in the grocery store, like, you know, are a vital part of the fabric of our society. And for us to still be debating over, you know, this legality of it just sometimes makes me want to go, everybody stop and look at the big picture. So that's my little rant on it. Leslie, Leslie, what's your perspective? And congratulations, by the way. I think Christian told me you're going to UCLA next year.
Yes, UCLA.
Yeah.
Go Bruins.
Congratulations. And you are first generation. So you're the first generation in your family to speak English. Is that accurate?
Yes, it is. I am first generation that is going to college, and English is not my first language. Spanish has been my first language, and my family is from El Salvador. So I am a Latina, and I do have two languages going around. They sometimes get mixed up, but you know, as a first generation, it's really hard. Mostly as a Latina student, it can be really hard. There are many things that many people misunderstand about Latinos, but you know, it's really important to say that Latinos do matter. And I am an example of how Latino students can go to college and will create change within our community. And that is a little about many of the things that my school and Dr. Quintero have taught me.
And Christian, weigh in on this too, but Leslie, when you say there's a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of people have preconceptions, what are some of those misunderstandings and preconceptions that you think get placed on Latino students?
You know, one of the first things that pops into my head are many people believe that Latinos come for a better opportunity, and that is totally true. I totally support that perspective, but I also want to point out that many Latinos don't have an option. Their parents send their kids to another country because they want them to work. They want them to bring back more money back into their country, because if we notice, there are many needs back in our country. Currently, El Salvador is suffering from a thunder. Many houses are getting ruined. Many people are going hungry, and that is really unfortunate. My family is currently right now facing back over there in El Salvador many hunger problems, and it just really seems like kids come to another country not only for the opportunities that we couldn't get over there, but because we also need some of the benefits that thankfully we have here in this country.
So that's one misperception. What's another one? And again, Christian, weigh in too, because I'm sure you guys see them. And, I think we need to point out what they are, because again, sometimes people have them just drilled in their head. They're not consciously doing it, but they make an assumption. They just draw conclusions based on what they think, and then they put it on everybody. And I see you nodding your head, Leslie. You're like, yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah, I could say that another misconception that pops into my head is just the fact that a person did a mistake and it has like a Latino background and did maybe a little crime or something. Doesn't matter the level of the crime. I think that, it's important to say that even if a person did a mistake, doesn't define the whole Latino community. It doesn't define me personally. I am proud that I can say I'm going to UCLA, and that was my dream. As a Latino, that's one of the amazing things I have been able to get. And it doesn't necessarily mean I'm a criminal. It doesn't necessarily mean I came here to hurt someone. It means I came here because I couldn't get this opportunity back in my country, and therefore I'm gonna take advantage of it now.
And I think I love that. And by the way, we've been getting some comments on the screen. I just want to say one Instagrammer just said that she was sending you lots of love and light, Leslie. She put on before, apparently she was a guest on my Fox show a number of years back and has a biracial family. So Elizabeth, that seems what her name is, Elizabeth. Thanks for your comments. Love to hear how you guys are doing and your family's doing. Leslie and Christian, look, I think it's fair when people say, look, sure, some people who come here illegally commit crimes, and some of them shouldn't be here, and some of them are bad people, and somehow that's true of every population, right? I mean, there are good and bad people in every population. The people, it's like nobody's immune from it. Yet we tend to put it on everybody as if well, you must all be that way. When in fact, and right, Christian, if you look, the majority of young people that you're working with are going on to give something real back as much as anybody else is.
The reality is, I see, students from 14 to 18 to 19 at my school, and all of them want the same thing that we want, which is they want to have a better future for themselves. They want to have, a sustainable living for themselves. They want to be able to work and be free and be comfortable in our society. And so I think we start pigeonholing different communities because our current administration has allowed that to happen. And we need to stop doing that. And we need to stop letting that continue and letting those stereotypes try to be perpetuated in our society and our conversations.
Leslie, when you think of yourself, how do you think of yourself? I don't want to give you options. I kind of want you to share how it is, but basically, American first, El Salvadoran first, American El Salvadoran at the same time, Latina first, how do you frame yourself? Are you, if you were to go, I'm Leslie and I'm
Hold on, Rob. I'd like to interrupt for that question. That's an unfair question, because how we define ourselves isn't necessarily how other people define us. So even though I was born in this country, even though I have a passport, I have gone to places where people are, where are you from? I'm from Los Angeles. No, where are you really from? So I get that constantly. So it doesn't matter how we define ourselves. If people come up to us and are already starting to define us for us, that's the struggle.
That's a really good point. You're right. And people do exactly that. Well, where are you really from? And you're right, because nobody says that to me. Well, sometimes they say if you're not from California, but nobody goes, no, where are you really from? Like, it's like, you're right. And there's an assumption because you're a Latina or a Latino, well, where you were originally from. And I don't know that it's always meant in an ill-intentioned way. I think sometimes it's a benign comment, but it sounds like what you're saying is don't. So Leslie, may I ask a different way. How do you want people to define you?
You know, I think my action can speak for themselves. And I think that it's not about only how you define yourself, but it's also about the way you show who you are. It's really more about the actions you take to show everyone else what is part of you, what makes you unique, like what makes you be you, you know? And even though I could say, you know, I'm a Latina and I have like this background, it's also part of my actions that speak for themselves.
And you know what I'd like to say is, and I asked the question partly because I have a definition that I wish we could start using, and that is, no, keep Leslie up here for me, Bruce, for a second. Leslie, I wish people could look at anyone, just look at you, and instead of having to put you in a box, could simply say, this is Leslie. She's a young woman who lives in Los Angeles who is doing blank, blank, and blank. Like the fact that we have to put a label on, qualify you as a Latina, which you can say, but I am a Latina, and I'm not saying you don't want to be known as a Latina, but that we have to put you in some kind of a box at all versus just saying, this is a young person who is living in Los Angeles, who's just gone to school, is going to UCLA, and has plans and visions to do blank for the world. Like if we can get to that point, and is that naive that I think we could, that would be a way we could see each other and we'd actually be better off for it?
I totally agree. Just, I think that putting people in a box makes them also limit themselves of who they are, because you already have the perspective of, you know, people think this is who I am, so let's try to show exactly what they want to see. But it's not about what they want to see. It's more about, like, be who you are, and they could be totally wrong, but you got to prove them wrong.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Christian, you have a thought on that?
Did you hear what she asked to say? She said, you have to prove them wrong. That's the saddest thing. We shouldn't have to prove anything. We should just be who we are. But that's how people of color in the United States have to do in every space. And that's one of the wonderful things that the Black Lives Matter conversation has brought up, which is when you're at work, when you're at home, when you're doing anything that's normal in your society, but because of the color of your skin, because of the accent that you might carry in your voice, you have to be a little more cautious, and you have to prove that, no, I'm this, and because I'm this, you should be okay with me. That's terrible. We shouldn't have to prove anything, and that's the bad part of our society right now, right? We're just who we are, and that should be it.
And, you know, I guess everybody out there watching, you know, I think what the point you both made is, think in your own life, everybody. If you're, just be honest to yourself. Do you do what Christian just said? Do you put, first what Leslie said, you put people in a box, but then do you subconsciously make them prove themselves? And then you literally ask them, do you make them prove themselves to you in your head? Oh, so you're not like those other people, like somehow like, oh, see, you're good. You know, like some qualification that proves if you're doing that, you're doing exactly what they're talking about. You're starting out and you're already saying, you're putting people behind and saying, you got to somehow show me you're not whatever the thing I decided you all are. And that's where we fundamentally get stuck in what I think is the unconscious racism or whatever you want to say. It's not that you necessarily hate people. It's just built into your head that you create a double standard.
Yeah, it's the implicit bias we all carry.
Right, implicit bias. So Leslie, can we talk for a minute about dreamers and stuff? And Christian, I asked you, and I know you said you're not going to say on the show how much of the school is dreamers, and I understand why you don't want to do that. But there's a fair number of dreamers in your school and in Los Angeles, LAUSD in general.
Well, I was going to say, I wouldn't say any school should feel comfortable saying that number because of, you know, we're putting targets on our families.
Right,
and that's terrible. But I will say that,
by the way, it's sad that sad that if you say this, you are, but it's sad that that's actually what that means. You're going to put a target on yourself. Like that is sad.
Yeah, but I will say Leslie's working with this one project called I Learn America, and I'd really love her to talk about that because this is about bringing student voice and students' journey into the fold. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, Christian. So I Learn America just changed me. I could say it made a huge impact on me. You hear me talking right now. You hear me like with this comfortability of talking about me, but this had to be built. This wasn't me a few years ago when I entered high school. But thanks to the I Learn America project, and it's not only a project, it's now a program, it's now worldwide because it made so much power, it made so much change. And it has to do with students around the country sharing who they are, sharing their stories, sharing and talking it from their heart, talking from the bottom of their heart, their emotions, how they feel, some of the experiences they go through. And currently, because of the COVID-19, we had to build off from all of our schools from that had connections in Massachusetts, Florida, Maryland, California, and even Colorado, and now LA. We had to launch this I Learn America story shares through online because of COVID-19. And so now what we do is doing online storytelling events that empower youth to support each other while also addressing some of the issues that matter most to them.
So how do I want to get into a couple of those issues. How do people, if they wanted to watch or participate, is it a website? Can we put it up on the screen? What's it called? What the easiest way for people to find out more about it?
The website, it's I Learn America, is where you can find all of the stories from many of the immigrants that came all around the country. But also right now we're currently starting a summer program. It's a paid summer internship that we're gonna do, which is 30 youth I Learn America innovators, community leaders, and change makers that partner up with schools and organizations to develop their ability to change their active roles and just have that change makers and be able to create change within our community and show more people around that immigrants aren't afraid to share who they are, but also make them feel empowered, because even though they have a different background, it doesn't lower the voice, it doesn't make them feel less. They have the same rights as everyone else does. I have the same rights as every American can possibly have, because I also have a voice, and this is part of our program. This is what we do. We have our voice, and we make sure that our students know that they can empower our community, they can empower our youth, and they can also create change. So that is some of the stuff we are also currently doing.
I want people. Again, it's give the website. It's what is it?
iLearnAmerica.org
or .com. iLearnAmerica.com. Leslie, just listening to you, you really do have a passion and a powerful voice, which is awesome. I also think you're the kind of person that, like, looking down the road, I'm out there all the time going, you're the kind of person that should run for office. Like, we need people like you, not people who want to be politicians, people who want to create community, share stories, create real change from the ground up. Those are the kind of people that people are looking for to lead. So I'm putting my bid out early that when you finish UCLA, you run, for Congress, even, whatever. You don't have to start at city council. Like, go big, because people want that kind of a voice. So, but what I want to ask you is, what do you think? And again, I love that it's all about, you guys are talking about bringing, community together, bringing change makers together, organizations together, creating dialogue. Nobody does this by themselves, right? I mean, that's partnering up is what it's all about. I know that's what your school's all about, but even, what your program's about is creating that connectedness. Talk about that for a second, because to me, it's like we lose sight of how much difference it makes when you join forces. Like, it's not that hard when you go, listen, we have this and you have this and we have this, and we can come together, and it creates real guidance and real change. It's not just about throwing money at something, even. It's about creating that framework, right?
So our school has a narrative that we started about 5 years ago. When a student comes into our school, we call them a global citizen. And as a global citizen, they learn our learning management system. They learn how to do project-based learning. They learn how to work in collaborative groups. They learn how to navigate the terrain of school. In their sophomore year, they do a sophomore defense. And in their sophomore defense, they talk about how they're ready to become global leaders. And in a global leader, they take more ownership of their curriculum, or more ownership of their learning. They start looking for community partnerships outside of school to help kind of build their resume and kind of move forward. They start looking for internships. And then when the students do their senior defense, they are preparing to become global ambassadors. And as a global ambassador, they are ready to be change agents for the world. And Leslie is a really perfect example of that. She is one of our global ambassadors. She got distinction in her senior defense, but she speaks with passion, but she also knows how that her voice will change the community and make it for the better, right? And so that's the framework that we use at our school. That's the narrative, how we tell our students their story. When you come into our school, you come in as a global citizen, and when you leave our school, you leave as a global ambassador, ready to change the world.
I love that. Bruce, can we put the website up on the screen for people? Can we just run it up? It's because people are asking for it. Can we just stick it up on the screen somewhere?
It's running on the footer down below.
Okay, it's on the footer down below, everybody, if you want to see it, so that you can get in touch with them. Leslie, when you hear us talking about it, would you consider politics, or do you, and I know a lot of Gen Z kind of look at the political process as like, and I get it, like it's a joke on all sides. I mean, there's not that there aren't good people, but it's a pretty broken system. Would you consider and you're nodding your head, right?
I'm smiling because I know her answer.
Okay, well, I want to hear your answer. And I'm not saying it's the only way, but at the same time, I feel like we tend to write it off and go, they're all a bunch of losers, but they have a lot of power. So, what are your thoughts?
I had originally changed my major so many times, but always staying in politics, always staying in changing laws, always staying in changing this, changing that, because I know there's so many misconceptions, and I'm still gonna focus on that because my goal is to show those misconceptions are wrong and show what reality really is like, show what really is true and what is behind those misconceptions. So I did chose to be part of studying economics just because I believe in social change. I believe of empowering others. So I am staying around that type of learning just because I want to keep on moving forward. And I know that I can create the change. And even now as a youth, I have seen the power of my voice. I have seen how I am able to empower others. And I want to keep on doing it. I want to keep on mentoring others who also keep on doing it themselves.
I love that. Do you think, Leslie, that most of you're obviously in the more exceptional group of students of any group anywhere? I mean, you're at the top of your class. You're going to a great university. You have an amazing voice and passion and ability to communicate that. That sets you apart from most people, period. But do you find among your peers and your classmates and your friends, is there more hope or cynicism when it comes to what you're saying? Not about the future, but about the power of like me as an individual to make change. Like when you say that, are most people like, I don't know, Leslie, it's not that easy? Or do you find most people are like, yeah, I can go move a mountain if I want to?
I think that having hope is a part of building change, but also taking action. I think taking action and building community, building connections, it's really what takes part of what the outcome will be. If you want to have something, not only hope for the best, but you gotta take it step by step, even by starting a meeting with an organization, meeting with someone, it builds a huge change already. So I think it takes action on, and you will have amazing outcomes.
And I agree 100%. And I think what I'm asking, and Christian, for you to weigh in too, is our young people, and again, you can't say for all, but you can certainly say for your community, are they more encouraged or discouraged by the power of their voice? I know when I was in my 20s and I was a young political activist, most people I knew were actually kind of I'm Gen X, but we're kind of discouraged. They were like, you can't make a difference. And I was like, no, you can. So Leslie, you're the yes, you can. I guess I'm asking, do you think most of your friends, peers, your other students think they can or actually think they can't? Which I'm hoping they think they can, but I wouldn't blame them if they thought they can't.
I think that this uprising particularly has been a really great way to move youth voices forward. And so I think we're seeing small successes and more voices being amplified. So I'm hopeful. I think our youth are actually more interested in the positive change and pushing things forward. But you know, I can also see that there is some cynicism, but particularly these last 6 weeks, I think there's been an upsurge, and I'm really hopeful for the changes we're going to see in our society.
Yeah, and I would just like for everyone out there, if you've got kids or if you're a young person, you don't have to be 18 or 17, or you can be 30, 40, it doesn't matter. That's the thing. Change never has a time limit on when you can start. Actually, it's like, oh, too bad I didn't do that when I was her age. It's like, do it now. Like, nothing's stopping you from jumping in today. But I do hope people hear what you're saying, Leslie, because you're not saying it happens overnight. And yet you're saying, I know it's a process and I know it's going to take time. But if we start taking those steps and start talking and creating outlets and creating communication and moving the ball forward, we'll actually get there. And I think too often we live in a social media age where we want instant results. So we're discouraged and we sort of throw in the towel on it. And I hope more people realize, Leslie, what you're talking about is, if everybody did what you're doing, we'd change the world. It's the truth. It's like if 100,000 people just said what you said and tomorrow went out and acted that way, we'd see change start happening, because it's truly a force in and of itself. It's not like
I also want to just say that you can be part of this change. We are going to start meeting Tuesdays and Thursdays, and part of our program is to share our stories, change our community for better outcomes, for a better tomorrow, for the upcoming generations. So we are building among each other's thoughts and creating that change. So I really encourage all of you who are seeing this show, you can be part of this change too. If you just gotta take step by step, but talking to someone can be the first step.
Right. That's right. You guys, this has been great. I want to just kind of get the last thought from each of you in the form kind of a question. Christian, when you look at Leslie and when you look at her classmates and you look at the other classes before this, but particularly right now, the class you have graduating and the grades underneath that. And I don't want a cookie cutter answer here, so I'm putting you on the spot, but what are you most excited about for them? And also, what are you most worried about for them?
Wow.
I know it's a big question, but I really mean it. I think it's relevant, because obviously you go home at night and you do have worries for them, and you also have hopes for them, and you put them in that's your job. That's why you're in charge.
Well, my big hope for them is to, live the dream that they want to live. And so whatever that dream may be, however they define success, to be able to find that potential in them and move forward with that potential. That's my hope for all of our students. My biggest fear are the systemic constraints that might be barriers for them to do that. And so, again, thanks to the uprising and Black Lives Matter, we have conversations now in our classrooms that are going to be talking not only about civic action, but how do we support our African youth, our African American youth, to be successful on par with everyone else. So let's talk about systemic racism. Let's talk about systemic biases. Let's talk about the barriers that exist and how do we get rid of them. So that's the challenge that I see in front of us.
And, Leslie, I want to turn that to you. But before, I just want to say, and I think, Christian, that is really important because, again, the gloss of the protests and the media coverage fades away. We've got real economic inequality in America. And, it's in general in communities of color, and it's in general with inner city communities and urban communities. We have real economic inequalities in this country that we've continued to ignore for decades and decades, beyond just the issues around systemic racism and police brutality and that kind of stuff. there are underlying core issues, you know, and again, even just LA and New York and Chicago, you know, my backyard, you know, where you have such incredible amounts of violence still in those communities that we ignore. The media ignores on a, you know, daily basis. And it's like, we've got to heal all these wounds. So maybe you're right. Maybe these protests let us put a bigger light on all of it.
For
You
sure.
know, it's my hope.
Yeah.
Leslie, biggest, and again, you know, I know it's not fun to be asked something you're worried about, because you're like the you know, girls out there like, we're going to do it. But in a fair way, I want to ask what concerns you do have about the future for your generation, that, you know, and then again, what's your biggest takeaway right now in terms of like what's inspired you through all this to like go, yeah, you know, this is actually giving me hope. Because a lot of people right now, I think, feel discouraged. And, you know, I think they're looking to feel like what to be hopeful.
I think one of my biggest worries has been, and it's currently still, because many of Latino families, parents, adults believe that it can be impossible for a student or their children to go to college for the expense that it takes, for the money that they don't have in their pocket to pay for college. But, you know, me personally, government helped me with a few part of the money that goes into college, but also the scholarships I earned with my hard work. I had to look for them. I had to earn them. But those are the things that parents sometimes don't realize, that, you know, there are many opportunities that can get you to college. There are many things that they're right in front of you that can make you go to college, that can motivate you to go to college. And that is one of my biggest worries right now.
Do you think, Leslie, that, and whether it's true for you specifically or friends of yours, that often it's the parents who have not for the wrong reasons, but have a more limited view of what's possible for you than you have? They want better, but they may be more afraid the system won't give it to you or won't change. Is it, and Christian, you might have a thought on that too. Is it that you guys who are kind of going, no, you know, like, and I get why parents would do that. One, you want to protect your kids. Two, you want to lower expectations. Three, you may just feel like, I don't know, it's not, you know, the system isn't fair. Is that kind of true often, that, you know, it's the parents, that the kids actually have the brighter vision?
I'll go first. I think, for many of our parents who don't know the system of higher education in the United States, are very fearful that their children are going to be hurt, harmed in any capacity by them going to college, and so releasing, or that the tension they're feeling is that letting them go, and I think that's hard for many of our families. I don't know, Leslie, you could probably speak to that a little more. So that's something that we have to help educate our parents with, and make sure that they're aware that, you know, there are safe places to be, there are ways to be successful in post-secondary institutions, but it's a real fear for many of our immigrant families.
And as from the student's perspective, I think that at some point it can seem impossible, that it seems that dream really far away from you, but it takes also part of learning your ways to get there, learning what can your community provide you with. So I think that also that's part of learning how to get where you want to be, and learning what can go to college do for you, what can get a higher education do for you later on, not only for yourself but the generations behind you.
Well, you guys, this has been really great. And last, we have a comment. It says these kids are the hope for our future. And I just want to say, so Leslie, no pressure on you. You know, you guys are going to save us all. But actually, I think it's actually a great thing, because I think, you know, I look and I listen, and it's like, you really are. You guys have the ability to change absolutely everything if you want to. You know, we all collectively we do, but, you know, your generation really can. So I'm not worried. I don't think it's going to be easy. I don't think it's going to be a walk in the park. But, you know, that attitude you have, I want you to hold on to that every single day, no matter how hard it gets, because you really can be one of those people who helps lead us to, a different future. And someone else will be inspired by you, and they'll do it, and they'll do it, and they'll do it. And, 20 years from now, it'll be calling you a senator.
Hey, Rob, real quick, we have people asking how they can support the school.
Got it. So how can people support you, Christian?
There's different ways to give support. We always need community partners. We always need mentors to come in and talk with our students, work with our students, help them learn to navigate the system. If they want to give any type of financial donations or things of that nature, they can send checks directly to the school, Los Angeles School of Global Studies. And if you go to my website, you can see the address of the school. You can send checks directly there, and we'll put those into our donations accounts.
What's the website, Christian?
It's lasgs.net.
lasgs.net.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And if you're if you have opportunities for internships, there's definitely ways that you can help support our students. We're always looking for support. So hopefully, when this pandemic subsides, we're all vaccinated. We'll be able to start getting those relationships and partnerships back together.
Yeah, and I'd like to say also, people, if you're not from LA, you can obviously help. There's financial, but you can also spread the word. You can get the message out about this school. You can get good press coverage for it. This school is not unique, but it's exceptional in its commitment to creating real partnerships between students and the community and helping kids critically think and grow into being able to really be productive members and of their community and the world around them. And so it's an amazing school to get behind, and it is all about partnerships. So when he says we're looking for partnerships, he means it. Christian means it. Like, they want partners. They want people who will support the school. And I'm sure Leslie can attest to it. Those partnerships are invaluable. And they probably help shape your mindset of how that works. So thank you. Yeah, Leslie, you still there?
Yes, I am.
You went silent on us.
Partnership is a really important thing, just because I learned the power of having connections. And through those connections is that I could proudly say I'm attending UCLA, because not only I'm getting the help from my school, but also the help from an organization, Breezy Foundation. They also are supporting me. Supporting my family, mostly through these hard times that many families have the need to look out for those opportunities that whether it's food, whether it's rent, there are many things. But partnership can make you more powerful, can encourage you to say, I have these people right behind me. I have these people that are encouraging me to do this. So I gotta do it. I gotta push up forward. I gotta work for it, and I gotta get it, because I want to make these people proud of me.
Right. I love it. And I just want to leave it on that thought, everybody. Partnerships, period. Alliances, coalitions, partnership, coming together. Nobody's winning when we just come apart. Everybody wins when we find ways to come together, and we all learn and we all grow. So whether it's in a school, whether it's, with a student, whether it's helping this school, whether it's helping something in your community, whether it's just getting into a dialogue, get into a dialogue with Leslie's group, just open it up and let's move forward, not backwards. That's my hope. And we can do it. So I want to thank you both for coming on. You were awesome.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Best of luck, Leslie. I know you're going to do great. Like I said, I'm looking forward to your U.S. Senate bid, or president one day. And Christian, thank you so much.
Thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it.
See you both. Thanks. Everybody, thanks for watching. It was for me, a really exciting show, really inspiring, a lot to get out of it. And again, go take everything God said, put it in perspective, take it in context. But remember, at the end of the day, if you can take nothing else away, stop putting people in boxes. Stop making them prove themselves to you. Stop using all your prejudgments about who you think people are, what they are, what they have to do. Stop picking a person and going, they're not like the others, like what the others are. Start opening up to that. And secondly, step into the conversation, not out of it. None of us know everything. Step in, find out what you don't know. Look at someone else's experience. Look at someone like Leslie's experience. Look at what she's done, where she's come from, what she's accomplishing. And open that dialogue up, and then partner up. Partner up in some way, shape, or form. We're all going to make progress when we come together. And there's a way we all can help each other. I'm Rob Nelson. It's Rob Nelson Live. Thanks for watching.